Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Volunteer Indiana program for 2009. I'm Steve McKinley with the State 4-H Youth Office here at Purdue University, and it's a pleasure to have you with us this evening to introduce to you the lesson plans and different materials that we have available for you for the Volunteer Indiana 4-H Toolkit for Success again in 2009. For those of you that may not be familiar with the program, this is our third year that we've offered lesson plans in this fashion. They're all based on the essential elements of 4-H youth development. In 2007, we started off with the belonging concept. Last year was on the mastery lesson plans. And this year we're looking at independence lesson plans. These would be ones that are based on essential elements such as the opportunity to see yourself as a active part of your future, and also to take some self-determination for what that future might look like. And so we're going to have a chance this evening to take a look at some of the lesson plans that we've been able to put together. And we'll be able to hear from several different 4-H extension educators around the state who have assisted putting these lesson plans together over the past year. They're all members of the 4-H Youth Development, 4-H Volunteer Development Committee, and they are representing each of the extension areas in the state of Indiana. And I would like to take this time to thank them for their incredibly hard work that they put in this past year to put together the lesson plans, some of the PowerPoint presentations, the fact sheets, evaluations, and other resources that are available to each of our county offices to work with educators, to work with volunteers, and ultimately to work with our 4-H members. And that's why we're all in this business anyway, is to make sure that we are offering programs that will be of high quality to our 4-H members. I'd like to take a special opportunity to thank Alan Ward this evening. Alan is keeping everything straight with us on technical issues in the background, and so we certainly appreciate his effort working with us this evening. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 24 sites that have joined us across the state of Indiana. And we'll get final numbers a little bit later on, but it's a pleasure to have each and every one of you with us this evening, and hope that you find this program interesting and that you find some of the materials that we're able to offer to you valuable as you go throughout the course of the year working with the 4-H members in your respective programs. I believe that you've already had kind of a roll call of sites that Alan took you through, so we're not going to spend time on that because we do have a very full evening this evening. And so what I'd like to do is to start off the program by turning over to my co-chair for the Volunteer Development Committee, Kathleen Cook from Hamilton County in Noblesville. Kathleen, thank you for all the work that you've done this past year to make sure things were going well. And at this point, I'd like for you to turn it over to you to give us an overview of what you can expect for the coming year. Kathleen?
All right, thank you, Steve. As Steve said, my name is Kathleen Cook. I'm in Hamilton County, and welcome to tonight's activities. This is our third year to do Volunteer In, and we're focusing this year on independence. And some lessons that are available we will go through tonight, but I want to tell you more that's also on this CD. Every extension educator 4-H has received a CD, so you can ask them about the resource, or you can go on the state 4-H website and can download all these lesson plans that you will learn about tonight. Some additional resources that are there that we won't have time to cover tonight are independence through 4-H projects. And those 4-H projects that are covered are bicycle, entomology, consumer clothing, geology, child development, personality, and soil and water. There's also an activity on there called goal setting, and we're going to do the introduction to that activity today. It's called Don't Drop It. And you should have supplies out there. Everyone should have a balloon or able to get a balloon from your educator. I got mine here. And what I'm going to ask you to do is take some masking tape and write on your masking tape all the different responsibilities you have. We know we have a lot of things on our plate. Could be work-related, church, 4-H, volunteering, just household chores, all that stuff that you're in charge of. And I want you to write it on your masking tape and then put it on your balloon. I'm going to give you a couple a minute to do that, and then I will tell you the next step to that. So I'm going to hit mute here. as you're finishing up putting your responsibilities on there, and watch it, your balloons may pop. We had one explode over here, and that just adds your excitement because sometimes responsibilities just pop up on you. And once you get your responsibilities on your balloon, I would like you to ask the facilitators at each site to lead you through this activity. You're going to circle up in the middle or in an area that you have, and I want you to try to help keep all the balls up in the air. Anything that falls on the floor, just let it be. Those are responsibilities that we just couldn't get done. And after a few minutes or so, your facilitator is going to yell stop, and then they're going to facilitate some discussion, and we'll come back together in about 2 minutes, all right? All right. Hopefully, you've had time to have a little fun hitting the balloons up in the air, and some things do fall down, and we're responsible for a lot of things. And this activity, like I said, leads into goal setting, because sometimes if you make a plan, you can handle your responsibilities on the different organizations, and it will help with time management, which leads right into our next session. So I'm going to turn it over to Amy, and maybe Amy will take the lead on this. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Kathleen. My name is Amy Johnson. I'm the 4-H educator in Adams County, and we actually have Jane Richards as well, who is going to help with the time management. I don't know that Jane is on tonight, but just a couple of things throughout the program that you have with time management. It's very wise to use the time as an important skill for both 4-H clubs, volunteers, and members. And just by overall, I know a lot of times I will become overwhelmed. I think that I have my to-do list, and it's just one of those things where things get out of control. And what's really important to realize that time management is one way to kind of use that. I know that I'm very active within the Junior Leader Program, and I'm sure that a lot of you volunteers have junior leaders in your own local clubs. And it's very important to also see how busy they are. I mean, we want these 4-H kids to be very busy and active within 4-H. So the time management portion of our curriculum kind of shows we have 4 objectives. Basically, I know that we have those PowerPoints, but there's 4 different objectives that this time management will do, and you'll see them on the screen. Youth will describe the importance of time management. Youth will define the strategy to set priorities, which we'll kind of get into. They will be able to identify steps to overcome barriers, and then also apply actual time management skills to complete their 4-H projects. Just a couple of things. I know we have a lot to get through tonight, so I'm just going to go over one of our activities, and you should have at your location items for an activity called Rocks in a Jar. So at this time, I'm going to kind of ask for the facility and the locations to get those items around. You should have in front of you the empty glass jars. And as I'm kind of going to go through this, we're going to do an activity with this, but I want you to all look at the empty glass jar that you have. The glass jar needs to have a lid on it. That glass jar actually is a demonstration of the amount of time available in a typical week. This is just an activity that you can use. It's just a kind of a good reminder for all of us, as well as at your local club meetings or junior leaders or other avenues that you have kids, to kind of help them understand how much stuff they can get into a week. So, like I said, the empty glass jar basically indicates and can represent the amount of time that you have during the week. It doesn't matter how powerful, famous, rich, all of us are, the jar is the same size. The amount of time that each of us have in a week is the same. It is just truly how each one of us utilize that time. So one of the things that we tend to forget is that we have, an amount of time to work with, and it honestly just depends on how much and how efficient we can be. By visualizing our time as an empty container, this can hopefully help us better understand and, more importantly, fill the container with things that actually matter the most. You should have also, now we're going to get into the substance that we're going to put into the jar, and there are large rocks, pebbles, and sand. Each one of those things represent things in our life that happen throughout the week. Kind of like Kathleen said, we have things that kind of come along during our day and bumps in the road. Maybe like the non-essential things. I'm going to start briefly by talking about the sand. The sand represents kind of the non-essential things in our life that they tend to fill up our days and our lives. Sand in this demonstration actually represents the wasteful, sometimes the non-valuable and producing activities that kind of tend to sneak up on us and prevent us from fitting the larger things into our life and also into, obviously, the jar for this activity. The pebbles in this task, or in this activity, are the little tasks that add up to be something significant. But if we miss one or two, it's really not a big deal. Kind of like the balloons, where if one thing dropped, it's okay. Some things do follow through. The large rocks represent those activities that matter most in our lives and that we have the most consequences if we do not do it. So at this time, we're going to do this activity right here. There's two ways to do this. So I just kind of asked that if there are locations that have possibly two or more than one jar and they can actually do this 2 different ways. That's great. I ask that one of them do it one way and the other one do it the second half. So hopefully the educators there at your location can kind of help direct you through this. One way to do this activity is basically, the goal is to put everything into your jar that you can. And I'm going to kind of give you maybe a minute to kind of go through and figure out how you can get the sand, the little pebbles, and then the big pebbles into this jar. I have finished mine and kind of putting it together. I've done it 2 different ways. So we're going to take a couple of minutes here briefly at the locations to go ahead and try to fill your jar. And I guess the educators at the counties, if you do have several different jars, kind of encourage, to set priorities and figure out what means the most to you, and kind of put a value to some of the pebbles, or some of the large rocks. Those represent those that matter the most, the things that you have to get done during the week. So I guess as you're doing this activity, just kind of think about each time you put something into the jar, kind of indicate what that is and how it is going to value and be significant in filling that jar. So at this time, like I said, we'll take about 2 minutes just to kind of fill that jar, the glass jar that you have, with all of the stuff that you can get into a week. As you're kind of finishing up, it looks like I see one group that is on the screen that I see some shaking going on to kind of make sure that everything gets into those jars. So that is perfect. I see some maybe turning things upside down and just really kind of putting all that stuff in there. That is perfect, and I appreciate that. Just one thing to kind of value is we can ask ourselves during the time. We have to ask the questions about how we prioritize our activities. Some of you, I'm sure, we can have some good conversation on. Some of you, I'm sure, put in maybe kind of mixed. You put some of the large pebbles in, or some of the large rocks, and then you put some of the pebbles and the sand, and you kind of intermix that throughout the whole thing, which is one way to do it. However, a lot of times if we find that we fill our week with the small things in life, such as the sand, that tends to get the pebbles to fit, and then hopefully we'll have room for the big stuff. The one thing that happens when we allow all of the least important priorities to fill up our day, instead of focusing on what really is important, we don't have room for the biggest things, and that ends up causing problems down the road. And that's just one activity with like our junior leaders that I know. They sometimes think that those little things that they have to text message somebody back, or do those small activities. They seem like they're always piling up. Some of our 4-Hers find themselves doing the little things and kind of ending up getting in trouble come crunch time and not able to do the big activities, which was in the grand scheme of things, when we do not do those large activities, it ends up causing consequences. And some of you, like I said, there were two ways to do the activity really. Some of you put the biggest items first, which is the most important, and then kind of went down to the next important, and then all the way down to the smallest. And when you do this, I think it's really important to realize how much you can actually fit into your jar. By focusing on the most important things first, we're able to get a lot more done and accomplished and set throughout our week. So I have, like I said, I have my glass jar, and I actually keep it on my desk. And just a reminder that when you think that there's no way you can possibly put any more into your week, just realize that, that jar is a definite representation of the amount of hours that you have in a week. And it's the same for you or, the volunteers that, you work with, and no matter what you do. So, and that Jane has an activity that are steps to completing a 4-H poster for fair activities that she had originally done. And those of you at your sides that you have.
Okay.
There you go.
Hi. Thank you, Amy. My name is Jane Richard. I'm the 4-H youth educator in Delaware County. And as Amy said, we worked together to come up with the time management lesson. We all need to learn how to plan for long-term projects. And in this particular activity, we'll focus on completing a 4-H poster for the fair. And the first step in any long-term project is start early. Don't wait until the last minute. We need to start by writing the project due dates in the planner or calendar. And if you look at the June and July calendar pages included in this activity, you'll see that I've already noted that the 4-H poster, is due on Monday, July the 13th. Next, to make a list of all the things you need to do for the project. In other words, break up the project into smaller tasks. And again, that step has been done for you on the activity card. Then decide what steps you'll do first, second, third, and so on. Then assign a date or even several dates in your planner to each step or task. By establishing a timeline, you'll be able to stay on track and complete the project on time. And these last two steps are what I'd like for you to do now. Place the activity cards in the order you think the tasks should be completed. Then assign each date, a date or dates on your calendar so that the project will be completed by July the 13th. In other words, begin with the end in mind and work backwards. So we'll take a few minutes now, and you can arrange your activity cards and plot those tasks on your calendar. Okay, just for the sake of time, because I think we have an 8 o'clock, let's see how you've arranged your activity cards. Hopefully you selected familiarize yourself with the project exhibit requirements first. Always a good thing to do before you start your 4-H project. Then research the ideas, information for the project exhibit. Sketch out a plan for your poster. Decide on colors and other details. Purchase your materials. Actually create your poster. Then finalize your poster details. This would include gluing, applying any finishing touches, attaching the project label, putting in your poster sleeve, and then, of course, your last task would be enter the 4-H exhibit at the fair. Then turning to your calendar pages, it was due July the 13th, so however you want to arrange your tasks on your planner. However, hopefully if you stick to your timeline, your project will be completed by the due date. I want to reinforce the idea that don't panic if you miss a day, just get back to work on it the next day. And always, always, the last step is, again, start early. Don't wait until the last minute. And now this may seem like a relatively simple activity, but it's a very good time management technique, and not that many people actually take the time to do it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jane, and thank you, Amy, for that lesson on time management. I think we can all use some of those skills as we go through our daily lives, and as hopefully we can also help our 4-H members to be able to learn a little bit more about how they can manage their time as they have those experiences in school, and hopefully through 4-H we can teach them some of those opportunities as well. I believe at the beginning of the program I neglected to mention a very important group that I'd like to thank, and that's the group that's here in the studio audience with me this evening, Dr. Talbert's YDAE 565 class, and you may have seen them. Now they're waving to you because they're now on TV. So they're here helping us this evening, and it's nice to have an audience instead of just talking to a camera. So I appreciate them being with us this evening. It's good to have them here. Alan, I believe, do we have Vigo County with us? Okay, so what we're going to do a little bit of a change in the schedule. So Brian and Jeff get on deck here. We're going to skip over one activity for right now and hope to come back to that here at the end. But I'd like to move on to the technology and social networking lesson plan that is coming up next with Brian Howell from Tipton County 4-H educator and Jeff Nagel from Tippecanoe County 4-H as an extension educator there. Brian and Jeff, sorry to spring this on you, but hopefully you're ready to go and can talk to us about technology and social networking.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everybody. We don't have any activities to do with this tonight, but hopefully we'll have some discussion either at our sites or if we have some time for question and answer to come in. Tonight our objectives with this particular lesson plan, or this condensed lesson plan, is to describe technology that youth are using for social networking, recognize benefits and dangers of this technology, share some strategies to keep youth safe in cyberspace and as they're using their other devices such as cell phones and things like that, and identify strategies for us to use technology in our 4-H clubs. If you could go ahead and switch to the next slide. This is an example of a Facebook page. Facebook is one of the more popular social networking sites that is available to anybody that has the internet access. All you really need is an email address to be able to set up a Facebook profile. I believe that there's about, I think the latest statistic or one of the more recent numbers I've seen is about 150 million people worldwide have a Facebook profile. As you can see, this is kind of a blurry picture, but on your PowerPoint that's in your CD or whatever, there's several items that are on a Facebook profile. There's a picture of me there. There's also a list of my friends. On the our left side, there's some information such as what networks I'm in, such as I particularly am part of the Indianapolis and Purdue network. It says that I'm a male, I'm single, my birth date, things like that. Also has my name on there. Across the top, you'll see little blue tabs. This is what is called the wall, where people can post different messages or pictures that can be viewed by anybody that has access to your profile. There's some wall posts on there. It kind of tells some of the different things that I had been maybe entered throughout the last few days, if I've accepted anybody as a friend or written on anybody's wall. Also, as you see, there's some text beside my name, and that's called a status update. And there's actually a website called Twitter where basically it's all status updates, which is I think Twitter has a maximum of about 140 or 150 characters. But you can say what you're up to. Sometimes people put funny sayings on there or whatever, just to let other people know what's going on with them at that particular moment. Across the top, there's another thing called info, where you have, I don't have a slide for that, but members have the opportunity to put their birth date, their address, their phone number, their email address, their marital status, their religious affiliation, their political affiliations. All of those things are optional. I believe about the only thing that you have to put on there, and I don't even know I think there's an option to not include that on your profile, would be your email address. It also has educational information on there, whether you went to college, what year you graduated, or you went to high school or middle school, what your degrees are. And then also you can do things that are called clubs or groups, where we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second. Another tab on there is photos, where people, either you can post photos from your digital camera or whatever you scan into your computer. You can make different photo albums and classify them. You can what's called tag other people that are in the photos, whether or not you can select them, and a box goes around their face or wherever you click, and you can attach that person's name to the photo. So then that photo would also show up on their particular Facebook page or MySpace page. MySpace and Facebook have a lot of similarities. I focused a little bit more on Facebook for this particular lesson. And then also there's another thing on there called boxes. Some people can put different what are called applications, whether they put there's a 4-H gift exchange on there. People can put bumper stickers, which is pictures of funny sayings, or flair, which is kind of similar. But there's a lot of different what are called applications that people can do as another way to express themselves. So that's just a brief overview of what a Facebook profile is. There's quite a bit more on there. There's an instant message chat option as well, and a few other things. So if you could go ahead and please switch to the next slide. There's some benefits to these websites. I know one of the mothers here in particular said that she makes her nervous to have her 7th grade daughter has a profile. So there are some dangers and there are some benefits, and I'd like to talk about the benefits. One way that social networking sites benefit youth is it helps them identify, helps them find their personal identity. On MySpace in particular, you can put the background in about any design you want, whether you have a favorite color, or some people take a picture from their favorite TV show or their favorite celebrity or an interest, and put that as their profile background. Facebook doesn't have that option, but with Facebook, like I said, you can add different pictures on your bumper sticker or your flare wall, things like that. And I know some of this is a little bit foreign to maybe people that don't have Facebook profiles. Ask your kids about it and they'll probably have an idea. Also helps them create a sense of independence, because if they're not watched or guarded, kids can do whatever they want online as far as the information that they put out there, the things that they post, things that they use to express themselves on their webs, on their profile. It's a good way to communicate with friends. As I was saying, on the wall, we leave funny messages maybe to each other, or sometimes you see people basically write a personal letter in some ways, but it's open to anybody. Facebook and MySpace also have a one-on-one messaging system. It's kind of like an email access. Also gain a sense of belonging to a group. As I said, there's an option to have several different groups on there. We'll talk about that a little bit later, in the way that that can benefit a 4-H club. Another way that these can benefit kids: opportunity to develop critical thinking and argumentation skills. Critical thinking skills come in as when it comes to what kind of information do they post, or what do they put on their profile that will be visible to other people. Also setting their personal settings, whether or not they have the ability to accept friends, whether they accept people that they know, maybe people that they don't know, maybe somebody that they've met once or twice. They also have the ability to have to think about how accessible they want their profile to be. Do you include it to anybody that's, say, in the Indianapolis or Lafayette network? For the Indianapolis network in particular, I live 40 miles north of Indianapolis, and if I would make my profile private, anybody down to Nashville, Indiana could probably be part of the Indianapolis network. So, you've got 150 miles or so of anybody that can see your profile. Find support from online peer groups. Again, that goes with the groups. Sometimes the groups are funny things. I, in particular, am part of a group that I could eat cereal for every meal. But other groups might have issue groups like Students Against, Name Your Cause, or political groups or things like that. Get help from homework. One of the first articles I ever read about Facebook was talking about how a dad was confused. He wanted his daughter to call a friend to see what the homework assignment was because she didn't have the right stuff written down, and she said, I'll just Facebook them. And so the kids were communicating that way instead of over phone. Excuse me. Another benefit, ask questions about sensitive issues they might be afraid to ask face-to-face. Sometimes when people aren't... especially kids, when they're not talking face-to-face, they might type something maybe in a message or in a blog, questions they might have or an issue that they want to bring up. They feel more, even though that it can be viewed by hundreds of people maybe, sometimes just by writing it, they're writing it personally and making it public. Right now I have a friend that's going through a tough time and she's writing blogs, and it's a very personal things that are in her blog, but she's able to raise awareness about some things that she and her family are going through. Kids can talk to other kids over websites that maybe they wouldn't, as I said, feel comfortable picking up the phone and asking, or maybe going to an adult. And you can get a diverse audience to read your concerns or answer your questions. Also, it's an opportunity to learn or gain a new perspective. Facebook is worldwide. I have friends across the world in China, Europe, Indonesia, people that I've actually met. But by the things that they post, maybe the messages that they send you, the pictures that they put up, your world is opened up to a lot of different things that you might not see in your, Indiana town. You have access to meeting people through maybe groups or clubs or whatever, and maybe if you don't become their friend, you can still send them messages and learn from what they have from their part of the world. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeff now for a few minutes, and we'll talk about some of the dangers of these sites.
I feel like Brian got to tell all the good stuff about it, and now I'm going to come in and tell all the dark and ominous stuff about it. But I think it's important that people think about this, and hopefully we'll give you some information on how to keep kids safe as well. So what are some of the dangers of these sites? Obviously, everyone's seen the television shows where they're, catching these predators that are online, and they focus on one type of predator. There's actually several. Burglars are one that people don't think a lot about, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Identity thieves are a very big one. To steal your identity, a person needs your full name, your birthday, and your social security number. Facebook, by default, will give them your full name and your birthday. So without trying too hard, they could have 2 of the 3 pieces of information they need. And obviously, sexual predators are something that are out there, and people say, well, they're out on Facebook. They are out on Facebook. They're also out everywhere. That's part of the world we live in. So be aware of it. Try to protect yourself, but don't necessarily freak out about it. One other that's a big issue that people sometimes overlook is what's called cyberbullying, where you bully someone maybe on Facebook by posting messages or doing things that would be bullying. What is extremely dangerous or different about it is, the bully in the schoolyard is the big kid. The bully online is anybody, because it doesn't matter how fast you are or how big you are or how strong you are. You can still bully someone no matter without any of those things come into play. And one that kids tend to not think about a lot, but is undesired attention, whether it's positive or negative, that can really make a kid feel awkward at a time when they may be awkward in their life anyhow a little bit. And, to get this attention, good or bad, off of their Facebook page can be a little bit difficult for them. Some things to remember to keep your kids safe in cyberspace are, one, Facebook has privacy settings built in. They're your first line of defense, and probably the best thing you can do is go and set those and set it so only your friends can see it is what I recommend. But if you want to extend it a little farther than that and friend to friend, you can do that. My problem with that is, and that kind of goes to the next thing, is to only add friends that you already know. So if you haven't met the person for real, in real life somewhere, you don't add them to your Facebook, and here's why. Brian's my friend. I've met Brian. I add him to my Facebook. Brian has a friend, Billy, that I don't know. Turns out Brian doesn't really know who Billy is either. I've just added a complete stranger to both of us to my Facebook, thinking they're an okay person, and they may or may not be. And that plays into the last point here, which is that cute 14-year-old boy may not be 14, cute, or a boy. You don't know, because a Facebook page, you can put up a picture and a name and say your birthday is whatever. There's not a lot of verification steps to that, so all of a sudden someone's taken on an entirely different identity. The other thing kids need to do is to think before you post. This kind of is common sense, but don't say anything online you wouldn't say face-to-face. So if you're not going to tell someone they're a dork to their face, don't go online and start doing that. That's where some of this undesired attention comes from, and some of those issues. The other thing that kids tend to not think about, and people in general don't think about, is if you put something out there, it's out there for good. If you put a picture out there or a video and I see it, I can save it. And even if you take it down 10 minutes later, I still have a copy of it. I could repost it, things like that. So just because you put it out there and take it back down doesn't mean that it's not still out there. As well, this is one, and I've got a great demonstration of this, but several innocent pieces of information could lead a stranger to your door when they're sure you aren't home, or worse, when they're sure you are. And here's a pretty good example of it. This is a picture. You might title it, Our New House, okay? And this gives you a whole lot of information, because I know what the front of your house looks like. I know 4 people live there, and what's circled there is their address with the street underneath of it. Now all I need is for someone to tell me what high school they go to, or what town they live in, and I can come to your door. What's worse, you post a little status that says, we're leaving on spring break for a week, and that brings up our next slide, where it's just like you put a sign out in front of your house that says, we're not home, we're not here. Come on in and clean us out, is kind of what you're telling people. So it seems like those are all innocent pieces of information. You know, what school you went to, that's innocent. Our new house, that's innocent. We're going on spring break, that's innocent. But together, you just gave me, if I were a burglar or someone interested in causing you harm, a lot of information. So you got to think before you post. And that's kind of our last slide, is think before you post, because it won't only hurt you maybe today with that burglar or someone wants to do you harm, but also tomorrow. Lots of people are looking at Facebook. They know kids are there. They know college students are there. They want to see what's on your page. Potential employers are looking at them now. I've interviewed for several jobs where they said, we looked at your Facebook, really liked your picture. College admission offices are starting to look at them. One that, if you want to scare a child a little bit and say, well, what if your boyfriend or girlfriend's parents are looking at this? That might make them, take a step back and think about what's on there. And one that I just read on CNN recently, CNN.com, is that some prosecuting attorneys and judges are now looking at them. Here in Tippecanoe County, our judge actually, in the juvenile court, pulls up your Facebook page while you're there talking to the judge, and they look through it. The story on CNN, the young man actually was in a drunk driving accident. He was drunk. While the victim was still in the hospital, he had posted pictures of him like about 3 days later out partying and drinking and wearing a costume that said jailbird. So when it got down to the sentencing part of his sentence, they actually went ahead and the prosecuting attorney showed these pictures in court, and he ended up with a maximum sentence for not using good judgment with his Facebook page, and probably not good judgment altogether. So think about those things before you post them. But try not to be scared. That's not our total goal here. And I think I'm going to hand it back to Brian to talk about how we can use this in 4-H.
Thank you, Jeff. Now that he has you all thoroughly scared, there are, as I already talked about some of the benefits, but there are some ways that we can use Facebook or MySpace with our 4-H clubs. One thing that we can do, it's open to parents, and you are more than welcome and available to create a MySpace or Facebook profile. And what you might do is you might create a profile for that group or club that you might be a leader of. Tipton County 4-H Junior Leaders has a club or a group on Facebook where I'm kind of the administrator of it, so I'm able to get access to some of the members. It's about the same as having email, but I don't have to know their email address. I just know their name and I'm able to look them up. Also, it's a good way where we can put meeting announcements or changes in meetings, things like that. Some groups with MySpace, it's a little more easy to do, where your county fair might have a MySpace page, and you can put updates on that, add members, put your schedule up, things like that. Also, keep members up to date in a blog. I know Jeff might want to jump in on this. Tippecanoe County, I believe, has at least one club with a blog, and they're able to put club announcements, post minutes, things like that. So people are, if they miss a meeting or weather, that kind of thing, need to get something to your members quickly, that might be an option.
Yes, we got a club that does that, and actually there's a leader that puts that together is here. And she said that you can, Jennifer, do you want to chime in and just say what you told me earlier about it, that
it's very easy to create. It's free if you go through google.com and create something on what's called Blogspot. And it looks like a website, but it really is a blog, and the kids can write in, but I'm the administrator, so it comes through me first whether or not it gets posted. And I remind them of, about security and that kind of thing. But it's been very convenient because everybody knows what's going on.
And she actually links stuff back to our Tippecanoe County website and also to the state 4-H website, so they can get the information right on her blog and not have to find our webpage necessarily. So.
Thank you. Another way, this doesn't have to do with, well, it could have with Facebook or MySpace. Also, text members if there's a change in the meeting. Kids love to text message. I doubt that there's too many parents I have to tell that to. But it's a quick way. It's just another form of communication and use of getting in touch with kids and using a method that they use currently pretty effectively. Also, another way that you can use a Facebook or MySpace group, share photos of events or meetings with members or families. I have several pictures from the 4-H Junior Leader events on our Facebook page, so that way, some of the kids that went to that event maybe didn't have their camera, and instead of me worrying about emailing it to them or getting prints to them, they're able to get online in their group and pull up those pictures, or we can share it with lots of people. Maybe they need to do something for a class project, and they can pull up and say, hey, this is what I've been doing in the community. So there's a lot more detail about Facebook and MySpace on the CDs. This was a very quick and dirty presentation, but Steve, I don't know if we have time for any questions or anything, but that might be a discussion worth having. There's a lot of educators across the state that have Facebook profiles, so a lot of them are very familiar with how the system works.
Okay, Brian and Jeff, thank you both for that presentation on social and social networking using technology for 4-H clubs. It is a fairly new adventure for us in 4-H, but it's one that's becoming much more popular, as you mentioned. I guess what I'd like to ask, if there's a couple of sites that might like to respond to anything that they're doing using social technology. And let's start with LaPorte County. Patty, I think I saw you on earlier. Is there anything up your way that you found has worked well for you with technology?
One of the things that we've done is we use it for camp counselors. In between trainings, they can communicate with each other and share ideas in their planning. A lot of times we'll use it for special events for junior leaders if they're planning a dance, or to try to get some hype going to get attendance going for that. So that's a couple of examples.
Okay, thank you, Patty. How about Franklin County? Angie, anything going on down there that has worked well for you with some social networking or use of technology?
Hi, well, we do have a Junior Leader Facebook page, and we do keep them informed about the meetings through that. And we have actually a leader, alumni, and anybody who loves Franklin County 4-H page, which they put up some old fair pictures and things like that, so it's kind of fun. And we're trying to use email and things like that as much as possible, just to cut down on postage and cut our costs when the budget's tight. So, do you guys have anything you want to add? No? So that's it for Franklin County.
Okay, thank you, Angie in Franklin County. Just a couple of examples there that you've heard from, and I think what I've done on the state level this year for the first time is we've got Facebook groups for a couple of the planning committees that we're working with to plan things like Junior Leader Conference and State Fair Youth Leadership Conference. And so our planning committees are in a group together. We can talk back and forth via that method on Facebook, and are able to set some planning times and to share some examples and some different training opportunities and some different ideas that we might have for different lessons that we might be able to offer at some of our conferences coming up this summer. So it's a new technology. We just talked a little bit about it over the weekend and had some good reviews and some varying reviews. Sometimes our youth don't use it quite as much as we think, but there are a number of them that do use it quite a bit. I'm going to turn it over at this point to Randy Brown down in Vanderburgh County. Randy's got a lesson talking to us this evening about engaging older members, working with them through the 4-H program. And Randy, if you want to start with anything that you're using in social technology down there first, that would be great. If not,
you want to
right
say
into
something, Mary?
No, because you're on a different topic now.
All right. Well, if I could get the camera figured out, I didn't know you were coming to me that quick, so I'll see if I can. Well, let's stand back here, can you, and make sure you can hear me okay. We want to start off by talking about engaging older members, and one of the things I'd like to say to begin with is one of the advantages we have, I think, especially in this organization, is actually being able to engage older members through some of the activities that we do in our local clubs. And I think it gives us an opportunity to really kind of separate ourselves maybe from some other organizations by allowing some of our older members to participate actively in some of those vital aspects of what is actually their individual club. Let's look at some of the objectives to start with. And you see, one of the objectives we have is to identify the characteristics of older youth. We also want to try to define some of the advantages of youth-adult partnerships. When we describe the levels of youth participation, and there are different levels, we want to share recommendations for successful youth-adult partnerships. And I guess that's one of the things when we talk about youth-adult partnerships, we're actually discussing things where youth and adults are equal partners. That might not always be possible in our organization, but I think we can work towards that in a lot of ways. And also then we can identify ways to engage older members. So I think what we'd like to do right now is take a few minutes at your particular site and maybe brainstorm some ways that you've engaged older members in your local community, whether it be in clubs or other organizations. So again, if you want to take a couple of minutes with the group that you have, brainstorm some of those ideas, and then we'll come back and maybe see what folks have come up with.
Randy, are you talking to the whole group? If so, we need you to turn your mic on.
No, Steve, we were just finishing up with our list here, and I guess the question would be, do we want to go again, maybe around the state and see what some folks had as far as possible ideas for engaging some of those older members?
I think that sounds like a good idea. Let's go ahead and start with your site since you're on. If anybody there would like to share a couple of the ideas.
Your chance.
At our club meetings, we have workshops. We focus on specific areas, and our older members contact a guest speaker to come and speak on that specific topic.
That's a
And
good
we also
idea.
have our, excuse me?
Any others from Vanderburg? That's a good idea.
We've had older members organize field trips and also help with workshops to help younger members and mentor them.
Very good. Another good way that you can involve those members in planning and making contacts, and that gives them great experiences that way. Thank you, Vanderburg and Warwick counties. I know at least those two counties are there that I see this evening. Let's move over to Elkhart County, up the corner of the state. Lori, I know that you have a group there this evening. Anything that you'd like to share on ways that you involve older 4-H members? Elkhart County, are you with us still? Okay, we'll come back to Elkhart. How about let's head down to Columbus and Bartholomew County. Is anyone there that has something they'd like to share on involving older 4-H members?
Okay, yes, we were discussing how I have older members that actually help demonstrate projects for the younger members, especially if they're more proficient in certain areas. So that also teaches the younger members about the different projects that they could be involved in. And we have committees we break up into, and when we have a breakup of committees, I've had senior members be the ones that help lead those committees, like say our trash can committee. And one of my senior members decided to help figure out what our theme work is going to be and collecting all of the things they needed to get that trash can done.
Excellent examples. Thank you, Bartholomew County. I especially like the one on the demonstrations. Not only helps mentor the younger members, but it gives great experience for the older members to get up in front of a group and to get practice speaking as well. So very good ideas and suggestions there. Let's go down to Switzerland County in the southeast corner of the state. Ginger, anyone down there that would like to share something with us this evening? Ginger, we can barely hear you. Can you get a little closer to the mic?
Our junior leaders do the 4-H, ready 4-H day. The whole day of day planning it, demonstrations, and everything.
Okay, thank you, Ginger. We caught a little bit of that with the City Day, I think, and some things that they do to help there, so we appreciate your sharing. Let's try one more in Washington County. Amy, if you could share anything from Washington or some of your volunteers that are with you this evening.
We want to pass, Steve.
Okay, I'll let you. Thanks anyway, Amy. Randy, I'll send it back to you and Vanderburg to continue with the lesson.
All right, well, we've included with this then obviously a lot more information than what we've talked about this evening, but some ways we want to involve older members, we did list some of those, and I think there's a slide that shows that. Obviously, they can publicize 4-H projects and activities. We've talked about that already. We didn't really mention recruit new members, but obviously that would be something that you could have them help you with. We've talked about advising members and preparing exhibits for the county fair. I think we talked a little bit about assistant program planning with specifics, but obviously they can plan the entire program, and I'm sure probably a lot of the older members and officers do that. They can assist the leader with share the fund. We've had some instances in the past here in Vandenberg County where there have been older members that have actually been in charge of share the fund, come up with the group act, held the practices, and the leader was basically there, for security purposes. So that was a real good opportunity for some kids that had that type of interest to be able to do that. And then, of course, obviously, special activities that the club's taking place in. We talked about community service a little earlier, fundraising, etc. And there wouldn't be any reason why, if there were kids that were interested, they couldn't help the leader with some of the club records. Now, that could be anything from maybe teaching younger members how to keep good records, but I think they could probably also do some of the things that leaders do with regards to club records in general. So those are just a few ways. I think, like I said, the full program would have more ideas, more time, and give you a little bit more understanding, like we talked about the objectives earlier, of some different things that we need to know about specifically working with older members. So, but I think that does it from here in Vandenberg County.
Okay, Randy, thanks again for your assistance this evening with that part of the program. I'd like to move over to Beth Linhard in Madison County, talking about fundraising for 4-H clubs and programs. Beth, are you with us this evening?
I am going to talk a little bit about fundraising for 4-H clubs and our 4-H program. So if you want to go ahead and flip to the next slide. Thank you. Some of the things that, we can go to the objectives, the next one. Sorry, Steve. Some of the things we want to just touch upon tonight are identifying fundraiser ideas that are appropriate for 4-H clubs. There are rules and things that we do need to follow when using the Clover and the 4-H name. So just to kind of touch upon a few, and you might also talk among yourselves there at your location, some of the things that you guys have done locally. Things that are good are value cards. You can do an auction, such as a consignment auction or silent auction. You can do dinners. You can sell T-shirts, have an ice cream social. You can have a festival. A group could get together, such as junior leaders or a 4-H club, and do lawn mowing in an area. Or I know we've had a group that worked with stuffing bags for a cooking show. They needed a youth group to come in, and they wanted to support that, so it was an easy way for them to kind of get hooked up and meet new people and make a little bit of money for their club. Some of the reasons why a club may be, or a program may be raising funds are going to be for special projects, trips. Example, you might have a county project such as purchasing goat pens or swine pens for your fairgrounds. You may get your whole 4-H association or council behind that and getting all the members involved in that. If on a club level, it may be taking a trip at the end of the 4-H year, like a completion trip that you might do with junior leaders, and getting them involved, and they're working towards a goal. And just to kind of help tie things up, the sites, I believe, have the fact sheet for raising funds for 4-H programs, and they kind of give you an outline of things that you can use with your club. And you can use this to teach younger members how to do a fundraiser. You can use it with leaders if they're not sure what all they need to do in getting a fundraiser started, the steps they need to take. The fact sheet kind of helps outline that. We also have a fundraising guide for 4-H, and that helps you just walk through some steps, some planning steps, to work with the kids, to make sure they all know why we're raising the funds. Helps get them involved, do some brainstorming activities with them. And, you can kind of take this, if you want to take it and use it as a kind of an entrepreneur type of a lesson, you could do that, or just to help them learn how to raise funds for a group that they're working with. But those steps to help conduct a successful fundraiser are going to be seek approval from your fundraiser from your county 4-H Youth Development Extension educator. You want to motivate your group, help the members understand the importance of the fundraiser. Also make sure it's age appropriate for your group. Help the members set clear goals for the fundraiser. Make sure everybody knows why. Those involved in the club should communicate club's goals are for that fundraiser. Limit your time period. And, an example that I use that was really good and a pretty common one was 3 weeks. If you have a club that meets once a month, start it, say, in March, end it in April. And try to involve that whole club. And that way everybody has, they're part of it. They feel like they've helped the club reach its goal. And advertise your fundraiser. Make sure the members of the community, area businesses, family, and friends all know about it. And that will help them have a very successful fundraiser. So that's just a quick overview of the fundraising section. The guide is there to help walk you through doing the fundraiser if you're not sure where to start or what you need to do first. So that's all I've got, Steve.
Okay, Beth, thank you very much. Appreciate you putting together that fundraising lesson plan for us. Going to ask a couple of sites to give us some input on maybe some unique fundraisers that they've found have worked very well for their counties. And I'll tip you off, and then I'll call on the first one. I'm going to ask for Knox, for Clinton, and for Orange counties to respond to this question. And Knox, if you have a chance to go first and just give us an idea maybe of one fundraiser that has worked really well for you. Amanda?
This is Knox, and we, our Horse and Pony Club has a tax sale that they do every winter, and then we also do like car washes.
Okay, very good. Thank you for those suggestions. How about anyone from Clinton County? Steph, have you got some good, unique fundraisers over that way? If not there, how about Orange County with Mary Jo and Hans?
We have car washes, lemonade stands, and milkshakes at the county fair.
Car washes, lemonade stands, and milkshakes. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Very good. All right. Thank you very much for that. And I know there's a lot of other good ideas out there, too, that hopefully you've been able to share at your sites. And again, as Beth mentioned, go through your county extension office to make sure everything's going to work procedurally with that, and hopefully you can have very much success in raising some funds for your program in the coming year. I wish to apologize at this point to Lori Bauslog, Alice Alderson, and Lana Frazier. We've had technical difficulties at Ivy Tech and Terre Haute this evening, and so they're not able to join us on the program. They put in a lot of work on this lesson. I'm going to do my best to present it to you here in the next few minutes. The skills to live on your own session. And so we're going to circle back to that one. So each of the sites, if you have still got that information available to you, we'll be asking you to pass that out here in just a few moments. But the skills to live on your own session has several different objectives, one of which to identify some of the life skills that we teach through 4-H. And there's a whole bunch of them. There's a whole wheel of different life skills that 4-H members can learn, anything from leadership to communication to teamwork, trust building, all those different types of things, living healthy lifestyles and so forth. And we're going to talk about some different ways of teaching those life skills to our 4-H members. There's a number of different ways that we can utilize those from the 4-H projects that the 4-H members complete. We talked about demonstrations earlier on. Some of the activities that you participated in this evening are some of those hands-on experiences. Of course, judging events that may happen at county fair or at other times throughout the year. Different project workshops, some skill-a-thons, a number of different ways that we can teach different life skills to 4-H members and to youth in general. And there's a number of different lesson plans provided in this one lesson plan for Volunteer Indiana that does teach some wonderful life skills to our 4-H members. So I would encourage you to check out these lesson plans in more detail, because there are a number of different things that that Lana and Alice and Lori put together for us this evening. And again, I apologize to them that they couldn't be on to actually present this for you this evening. What we're going to do is take a look at the Fast Food Choices game this evening. And this comes from the Vigo County Summer Education Program Series called Ignition Nutrition. And one of those lessons within Ignition Nutrition from Vigo County is called the Fast Food Choices game. And what we're going to ask you to do is you should have in front of you at this point, or in groups of 4 or 5, you've got some different types of menu items. And you're going to pretend here for a few moments that you're going out to eat at a pizza place. And especially when you lead this with your 4-H members or your youth, I think you'll find this is a pretty exciting activity for them. Without looking at the back, so don't turn this over. Keep just the pizza items on, or the food items on top. I'd like for you to take a look through those different items, and there's probably 10 or 12 or 13 different items that you can choose from. And once you just select a typical meal for yourself, if you were to go to a pizza place on a typical day, what would you select for your menu items? After you have made your choices, then look at the back of your menu items and take a look at the amount of grams of fat that you find in each of your items. And you have a fast food worksheet in front of you. And on that worksheet, we'd like for you to write down the fast food choices that you've selected, along with the number of grams of fat that go with those items. So take a couple of minutes to do that, and we'll come back together here in just a moment. I'll ask you to take about another 30 seconds or so to wrap up your first meal selections, and then total the number of grams of fat from your first menu selection. Okay, we're going to ask you to wrap up this round of your menu selection, and we've had a pretty spirited discussion here in the room, so I'm going to ask a couple of individuals here if they would be willing to share how they did at this point. How did you do calculating your total grams of fat with the first round?
I had supreme pizza, breadsticks, garden salad, and a Coke for 31 grams of fat.
31 grams of fat. Anybody beat that number out here in our audience? Higher. higher at this point? Any more than 31? Okay, we had it higher than 31. What'd you end up with?
I have 41 grams.
41 grams. Okay. All right. All right. So we got some good high totals here. Like for you now to do some revisiting of your menus and think about the various options that you might have to reduce the number of fats. What we're going for here is a healthier diet. We're looking at nutrition, ways that we can eat a little bit healthier. So we'll ask you to look again at your menu items and see if you can find some choices that would be a little bit lower in fat. Recalculate. We'll come back again together here in a couple of minutes to see how we did the second round. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to kind of reevaluate your selections. There's been a very spirited discussion in our room about whether or not this is important or not. It may be more important for some of us than others. It may be more important for you at different life stages. But the point is that we're trying to help you understand a little bit more about what could take place if you look to do a little bit healthier selections of your food items. It may not be your first choice, and it may not be something that you want to do every time you go to the pizza place. But if you start to make some healthy choices as a younger person, when you become a little bit older person, it should be easier for you to make the good choices for you. So I'm going to ask a couple of sites to see if they did a little bit better on the second round. And I think, Brian, let's start with you in Tipton County. I know you've got some folks there this evening. How'd you do the second time through with your fast food choices game?
Well, we had a few people that stayed the same. We had one person that went from 45 grams to 18 grams of fat. So I think they made a better choice. I won't zoom in on them, though. But
That's nice of you, Brian. What was a couple of choices they made to get from that 45 down to 18? What were some differences?
Buffalo wings with ranch dip instead of blue cheese dip.
Okay, we went from eating salad instead of pizza and changed dip from ranch dip, went from blue cheese dip to ranch dip for their buffalo wings.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you for that. Kathleen, let's go to you in Hamilton County. Anybody there have some good changes in their menu selection?
Well, we've had some lively discussions, that's for sure. And we know what we should do, but we all said, we don't go to pizza that place that much, and so what we like to do. But yes, we did make some changing out of things of the different toppings on our pizzas, and that helped us go down. And then adding that salad in, and then somebody said that count was high because of the dressing, so they would only eat half of the dressing it provided, so that would help cut their fat grams down. But definitely a fun activity a lively discussion, to say the least.
Very good. Thank you, Kathleen. Don't go too far. I'm going to come back to you here in just a second. But would like to just kind of wrap up this lesson this evening with the fast food choices and the living skills to live on your own. There's lots of additional lesson plans available for you in this one, and would encourage you to take a look at this a little bit closer. One of the national 4-H mission mandates is healthy living, and that's one way that we can help our 4-H members to learn to live a little bit more healthfully and do a little bit better job with their nutrition. We're ready to wrap up the program this evening. I'm going to ask Kathleen to give a couple of closing comments, and I'll come back and wrap up finally. So Kathleen, anything that you'd like to say this evening to wrap up?
I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Our site was very exciting to see the other sites as they participated in it. It was a neat experiment on this IP video. Like we've said throughout, your extension educators have the CD, and then also it will be posted on the Indiana State 4-H website, so you can have access to all of these lesson plans that we've covered tonight. And as we get ready for our fourth year, we look forward to that as well. I'm sure Steve will make a mention of that. So I appreciate you guys coming tonight, and I'll pass it back up to the state.
Okay, Kathleen, again, thanks for co-chairing this committee with me this year, and to all the volunteer development committee members around the state for all the work, again, that they put in to prepare these lesson plans to be able to share with you this evening. Also want to, again, thank Alan Ward for keeping us going in the studio this evening, for all the help that he gave us to get this put together and to be sure that we can be seen around the state. And this is being recorded, so it will be posted, as Kathleen said, on the State 4-H website. Take a look on the front page, homepage, so you're able to find it fairly easily that way. Also want to thank each of you for participating. We do appreciate that very much, and also would like to offer an opportunity if you have suggestions for next year's lesson plans in 2010. The generosity concept will be discussed, different ways that we can give back to the community, different ways that we can help our members learn to be civic-minded. And so as you think about different things throughout the year that you'd like to see either for a lesson plan or if you have good suggestions for lesson plans, please feel free to forward those on to any one of your educators who can get those on to me or to one of the Volunteer Development Committee members. So with that, we'll sign off for this evening. Again, thank you so very much for being a part of our program, and good luck in the 4-H program in 2009.